Okay, that is live now. Is it live? Yes. Okay, here we are. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for coming to the channel. I hope you get some value out of what I'm about ready to share. I'm actually going to be answering a subscriber's question, or actually somebody who came to one of the videos on the channel and had this. I'll go right here. Had this question. Had this question down here. How to insert video layer into a glass cube in Element 3D. The honest answer is there is actually not an easy way of doing it, and that has to do with Element being Element not generating real SS subsurface scattering, as well as generating opacity. But I'm gonna walk through. I did do another tutorial on how to texture a box in Element 3D, and where is that here? Let's see. Select texture, texture a box in After Effects using Element 3D. So in this, I actually do walk through the process of how I go about texturing a box. But let's go ahead and walk through this live, because in something like Cinema 4D, you can separate polygons and you can texture individual polygons. Let's go ahead and open After Effects. You can texture individual polygons inside of something like Cinema 4D. In Element, you really can't do that. It's not really set up to do that. But let's go ahead and let's create this project here. We'll just call this cube for now. I'm going to drop this down to 8-bit only because we're streaming here, and so I don't want to tax the computer more than it needs to be taxed. All right, so we have this. Let's create a solid element. Let's call this E3D, and we'll put element. So I'm using a plugin called Effects Console, which is by Video Copilot. You can go there. It's free, and it is a huge time saver in pulling up plugins and doing some fun things like that. So let's type in element. We'll plop element on there. I'm going to go ahead and let me see if I can find a piece of footage here. Where are you? You know what? Let's go to one of these visualizers that I created for some of the music that I have been writing. So let's pull in ambient rock, and where you can use any 16:9 footage that you want to use. The only reason I'm using this is just it's literally a piece of dummy footage. But I wanted to kind of show you what's going on here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to pre-compose this layer, pre-comp, and we're going to put it in there. And so I'm going to turn it off because I don't need to see it. So I'm going to go up to Element, and I'm going to go to Custom Layers and Texture Maps, and I'm going to select that pre-comp layer. And so now Element has somewhat of an easy way of being able to find that piece of footage. And part of the reason why I pre-comp it is it's kind of a good habit to pre-comp any textures that you're going to be, any custom textures that you're going to be using inside of Element. Just because, at least in my experience, if you ever need to change that texture for whatever reason, it's mapped accordingly. It's mapped. The UVs are correct and all that kind of stuff. You only have to set it up once. So if like one of the more recent projects that I had to do is I had to do a bunch of different versions of a particular box. And so the box art kept changing. Well, thankfully, because I had set it up by using pre-comps, all I had to do was change the material inside of the pre-comp, and it was already mapped and I didn't have to worry about it. So, all right, so let's add in a cube here. So we got a cube here. Now, I have shortcuts on my keyboard that are mapped to the little gizmo here, and this is kind of built into Element 3D. If you didn't know about it, you can go into the preferences here and transform shortcuts. So right now I have it set to ERT. So my E key is the move tool. My R key is the rotate tool, and my T key is the transform tool. Now this is I have it set up this way because that's how it's set up in Cinema, but you could do WER, which I believe is 3ds Max. But I have, of course, my keyboard shortcuts set to how I would use them in Cinema. So I just wanted to show you that in case you don't see me going down here and selecting these buttons, because I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. The other thing I wanted to do, which you may or may not know, is how you navigate this particular window with the camera. So if you left click in the window and drag with your mouse, you can not pan, but you can orbit around your object there. Your scroll wheel will zoom in and out, and then your middle mouse button, if you click that and then move around in the window, that will give you your panning functionality. So again, I'm letting you guys know that in case you are wondering kind of how I'm moving about this window so quickly, or doing things so quickly. And I might forget to mention any other shortcuts that I'm using. So if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below when the replay of this is happening. Or if you happen to come on live while I'm still doing this, you can ask questions. Again, because of the delay, I might not be able to answer certain things, so definitely feel free to ask questions. I will, like I'm doing right here, I'm answering a subscriber's question, so I will definitely get to it when I get the chance to. So, all right, so this is a cube. Now, one of the things that that you're going to want to do, so if I were to take this and I were to go here and go into my diffuse here, and I'm going to load the pre-comp, and you'll see right here that you'll see right here in this window that's 16 by 9, but that 16 by 9 texture is mapped to this cube, and that's not what we want. We don't want that. I'm going to turn the grid off. We don't want that at all. We want this to be mapped correctly. Now we could go into the UVs here, and we could change it here, but as you'll see right now, it's kind of tiling and it's kind of looking really kind of funky, and we don't want that. So the best way that you can get your textures to look the way that you want them to do, in this particular case it's 16 by 9, is just go ahead and change the actual size of your, in this particular case, cube, change it to a 16 by 9 rectangle. Now you could do 16 and 9, and then you've got a massive, I guess if you're creating a video wall, you could do this, but I want to keep things a little bit more kind of optimized, and so I'm not going to do 16 and 9. I'm going to do 1.6 and 0.9. So I'm going to bring it down a decimal point, and there we go. We have it mapped appropriately. Now, as you can see, this is mapped on the front face, the top, and the sides. Now, for the top, the front, the back, and the bottom, it's all mapped correctly because it's 16 by 9. But on the sides, it's not mapped correctly. Now, it's going to depend on your project and how you want to do this, and you can go back to, you can check this particular tutorial out, and I go through kind of a lot of detail because, as you'll see right here, let me bring this full screen. As you can kind of see right here, I've kind of textured this box, and the sides are different than the front. And now the way that I did that was I created, so in this particular instance, let's make this, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to clear that slot. So, but I'm going to bring up, I'm going to put a kind of a purpley kind of color onto that. Okay, so that's our base color right there. Now, how do I get that front face texture? Well, what I did was I took a plane and I plopped it right there. Actually, let's put those both into the group folder. So I got my plane model right here. We don't see it. So there it is. So let me rotate that to face. Let's do this 270. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing here, 1.6 and 0.9. And then I'm going to move that forward to be about right there. And as you can see, it's not 100% lined up. So let's do that. And it's not going to be 100% perfect, and that, at least in this particular instance, because we have those chamfered edges on that box, which we could actually bring down to probably 0.01. So that's a little bit better. We could also go into the front view here, as you can see, and we can bring this up. Oop, I got the box selected. Let's select the plane. Let's bring this up to about right here. So there's our plane. Now, I can go to this particular texture right here. I can go to the texture slot and I can load in texture 1, and there is our texture for, let's go to perspective. And so there, now we have, and again, it's not 100% perfect, so we could fix that. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but you know, we want to make sure that that is about as close as possible. So there's the front face right there. Now, if I had a separate texture, which I don't really have in this particular case, but I could actually, let's duplicate this, and there's our copy. Let's change that color to something like red. Now, if I wanted a separate texture for the side, I could do exactly. Why don't I just duplicate the model here, and then we'll rotate it. There we go, and we will move it to be about right there. Let's put that in the center. Could probably go here and center these out. I didn't want to center that out because that's about right there. Let's pull that forward about right there, okay. Now, it looks like our box is, yep, there we go. Our box is off. That was the bigger issue. Okay, so let's go back to plane. Let's move that to about right there. Let's go back to this plane, and there we go. So now that's centered right there. So obviously, that is not correct. So we need to make these both the same size. So let's point that at 0.9. And again, as you'll see, this is, let's actually make that 1 and 1, 0.9, there we go. So that's the height right there. So, obviously this is not the right texture for this, but you could take your other texture that you have and plop it on there. And now you have a front, you have a side, and you have kind of the base color right there. But this is not really exactly what his particular question was. He wanted to know how you can put a video layer into a glass cube. Well, so this is actually a live video layer. So if we were to go back to, let me put in a camera, and let me get my orbit tool here, and let's zoom in right here. So if I were to scroll through this, you'll see, or if I hit RAM preview, you'll see this is a live video layer. So that is, that's happening. So the basic part of his particular question is, how do you put in a video layer? Well, this is how you would put in a video layer. Now, glass cube is a whole nother barrel of monkeys, because you're not really going to get glass looking as good and as sexy as you would in a 3D program like Cinema 4D and then compositing it here in After Effects. But let's go ahead and play with what we have here. So I'm going to hit stop, and then I'm going to go into Element. And I'm going to get rid of that one right there. And let's see here. I'm going to go to my presets. Let's go to Pro Shaders. Let me go to translucent. We have fogged glass. And we have green glass. We have rough glass. Let's take rough glass 2. All right, so let's take rough glass 2. We're going to pop it onto the box model right here. So if I disable this particular piece of geometry, so that is, let's change the environment as well. Let's see what we have here. We can go into this greenhouse. So as you'll see, now that takes on the reflection of the surfaces that are on this particular HDR, and that's, obviously kind of what we want. But as you can see right now, I mean, this is supposed to be glass. Well, we can't see through the glass, and part of that is because, well, like I said, I mean, there's not real opacity inside of Element, so you have to use. It's in the advanced functionality of the actual texture. You have to use force opacity, and you have to bring that down. And as you bring that down, it allows you to see through that particular object. And just to show you, let's add a sphere. So if I have the force opacity on this to 100%, you don't see the sphere. If I bring the force opacity down, you're starting to be able to see kind of inside of that cube and see that there is a sphere inside of that. So you have to kind of play around with some of these settings to get what you want. Now, in this particular texture, if we go back here, so we have a diffuse, we have reflectivity, and we have a normal. But I think we also have some refraction going on. So if I were to turn the refraction down, well, it's not really going to look like glass. You also have your index of refraction, so that kind of changes the look of some things as well too. So let's take our video layer. Let's disable that sphere. Let's bring our video layer back in, and let's take it and let's put it into the box. Now, there it is. It's inside the box. Now, if we go back to Element and I hit play, there's your video. There is your video layer playing inside of a glass box. But again, let's see if we can make this look any sexier than it currently is right now. So let's go into, let's create a background, BG. We'll bring this down. I'm going to drop in Sapphire gradient. Let's do radial. I did the multicolor. I meant to do, let's leave the multicolor right there. Okay, let us go into, you know what, I'm going to change this back to, let's go to S, gradient, let's go to radial, and then I'm going to, we'll put in a blue. I'm not really designing anything here in particular. I'm just literally just kind of throwing some things in here and playing around. Let's go back to Element. Let us go to our render settings. I'm going to enable, let's see, comp lights. Let's enable shadows. So, because we're going to add some shadows. Let's turn on ambient occlusion. We are going to leave, let's leave screen space ambient occlusion on for now, because I'll change that later once we start. And let's add some lights in here now. Light, let's put in a point light. We'll put it right there. I'm not seeing the point light because my transform controls are off. So let's turn my transform controls. Show layer controls is what I meant to say. And oh, that's the other reason why it's not showing it, because let's move that there. Let's move that there. Oh, there it is. That's why it's so far out. Okay. So let us go to the position and let's do 960 by 540 and 0. There we go. It's right in the middle now. So if we were to take this, let's go to there. Let's move that little gizmo so the light is right there. As you can see, you're kind of seeing the light in the reflection right there. What is the... Okay, we can bring that up a little bit. And let's go to a custom view here. And there's the custom view. So the light is right there. We'll move that up to about right. Yeah, no, leave it in front. All right, so let me go back to my active camera view. Active camera view is right there. We can duplicate that and bring this, bring this back here for some backlight. Let's go to custom view and we will put this, not what I wanted to do. Put this light back here. And one of the reasons I'm putting this light up here, and you'll see, is let's go back into element. Let's put in a floor. I'm going to put this floor layer into, for now, I'm going to put it in the same group. So I'm going to put it in group 1. So let's just put in a plane. We have it right there. I'm going to go down to my front view and I'm going to make sure that it is about right there. So that's where the plane is, and I'm going to, you could do this a couple of different ways. I could either scale it up quite a bit like this. There we go. And if we go here, we can show ambient occlusion. And then for this particular texture, I'm actually going to go into the advanced settings, and I'm going to click, actually, let me do one thing before I do this. Let's go back to this particular material. Let's go here. I'm going to jank up the reflection so we see that. Now, one of the things we're not seeing is we're not seeing this cube. So we need to go we need to select the object there. We need to go to reflect mode and turn on mirror surface. And now we're starting to see that in this particular surface. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to actually scale this up quite a bit. So there we go. I'm going to scale that up quite a bit. I'm going to go back to this texture. I'm going to, let's go to the, let's turn the glossiness down so it's a little bit of a blur. I could put something in the bump to break it up, but I'm not really going to do that right now. And now I'm going to go to the advanced settings here and click on matte shadow and click on matte reflection. And I can turn the environment off, and there we see it now. Now when we go out of here and I go back to my active camera, now it looks like, so I don't want to go below the floor. So, because that's part of the reason why that kind of looks the way that it looks. So we can zoom that out. And I'm going to go into, we don't really see any shading. So let's go back into element. Let's go back here. Let's turn the reflection and the shadow back on. So we see that there. I'm going to go back to the reflectivity. I'm going to turn down the reflectivity a little bit, actually. I'm going to make this probably a little bit more blurry. So I'm going to turn down the glossiness. And I want to see a little bit more contact shadows. So I'm going to actually drop the floor just a little. Oops, that's not what I wanted to select. Let's, yeah, there we go. So let's drop the floor just a little bit. As you can see there, the floor, there we go. So now when I come back here, I've got a white floor. Okay, again, not looking very sexy here. One of the things we need to make sure to do, because we did turn the shadows on in the render settings. Let's go back to shadows. We did turn those on, but one of the reasons we're not really seeing shadows is because we also, if you double click A, or if you double tap A really quickly, it will show you all of the parameters of in this particular instance, the lights. We need to turn on cast shadows. So we need to make sure that the cast shadows are on, and we're still not really seeing, why are we not seeing? So let's turn this on one at a time. So if I turn this point light on, and why is it not showing me some shadows? It should be showing me shadows of the particular floor. And there we are. Okay, we're now not really seeing the shadows like we should be seeing the shadows. So I have, oh, there we go. I have shadow mapping on instead of ray traced. So once I switch that to ray traced, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Where did that light go? It's right there. So we can bring that forward, and you're sitting there thinking, well, that's kind of an ugly shadow. Yeah, it's pretty ugly. We need to go into the shadow settings of the light, and we need to turn the diffusion up. Oh my gosh, what happened there? That looks disgusting, because we need to go back into element, and we need to turn the samples up. I think in this particular case, we probably need to go to something like 4. And even then, yeah, it's looking a little janky, so let's make that 8. That's still pretty gross. We could turn that up. Or actually, probably a better thing to do is just to make this 16. That smooths it out a little bit. So if we bring this light up and then let's get that little Z and put it in the back. There we go. I'm going to go to the settings. I'm going to take the darkness down just a little bit right there. And I can turn the blurriness up more if I want to. Okay, so that's that light right there. So the other thing I want to do is I want some better contact shadows. So I'm going to go to ambient occlusion. I'm going to go to ray traced instead of screen space. And we can see right here as well too, we got a little bit of a sampling issue. So we could add more samples here, just double that. And that cleaned it up right there. And as you can kind of see, the floor is a little bit lower than I would like it to be. This would be one of those instances where if we adjust the parameters here in group 1, we're adjusting everything. And as you can see right there, that floor is right there. So in a lot of instances, sometimes I'll put the floor on a different into a different group, just so I can separate it out. You could also use these auxiliary animation channels, these aux channels, to do the same thing. If you have questions, again, if you have questions about anything that I'm going over, definitely leave them in the comments. Oh, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Definitely leave them in the comments, and I can answer any and all questions as I have time to do. Let's go to the front, and let's bring this back up just a little bit more. Let's put it about right there. So if we go back to perspective, there we go. Click OK, get it out of there, and good. That put that up there a little bit better. Raised. It didn't raise the roof, it raised the floor. So let's turn this light on now. Okay, so this light has no diffusion. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn that light off. Yeah, look at that. Look at how nasty that looks. So I'm going to bring this down to about 70 as well. I'm going to make that blurry. And so now we have that shadow there. We have this shadow in the back. So as you can see, this actually, that's shining a little too much light. So we're actually losing some of that shadow over there. It's fine. I mean, again, you know, these are all parameters that you can play with. If I turn that off, let me go here. Let's bring this. No, I kind of like a little backlight, so I want some shadow up here as well too. And then we'll take this, and I'm going to bring down the intensity of this light. That's the other reason. That's a pretty stinking intense light, and I think the intensity on this is really high too. So let's bring this down so something's a little bit more manageable. So now we're starting to kind of see we have this casting shadows in the back. We have, I'm sorry, this light is casting shadows into the front, into the foreground, and this is casting shadows behind. And so when you combine those two, you kind of get something that looks a little bit like that. So now let's go into scene setup. Let's go to this floor, and let's go to the texture, go to advanced settings, and we will turn on matte shadow, and we will turn on matte reflection, and we will click OK, and that punches through. And so now we have what, you know, kind of looks like a little bit of a kind of a seamless background, and we can kind of play around with the colors of these. And I could bring this up just or actually, here's what I could do is I could do this and then darken, get a kind of a darker blue there, and then I can bring up the outer radius there. So with this particular material that we picked on, oh, I know what I need. What I wanted to do is I wanted to go in and I wanted to add some additional lighting here. So add, let's put in the 360. No, I don't like that. Product, don't like that. Cinema, no. Let's go to basic. Basic works. Got rid of my shadows at the back there, though. The other thing that I'm noticing here too is the texture that we have on this glass, or what is that texture? That is rough glass. It's green. It looks green, and the reason it looks green is because of that. So we can go in here and we can change the environment to. There we go. Let's go to like something like day. There we go. And let's go to the environment. Let's bring up the gamma, or bring down the gamma, I should say. I could bring up the contrast a little bit as well too, or brightness. I'm sorry, and then the contrast as well. So you can play around with any of these things right here. But again, that's not really looking like glass, and again, that's just kind of a limitation of Element, unfortunately. See, like here, because it interacts with stuff inside of Element, but it doesn't interact with this particular background. You're not seeing the background like you would want to see. And again, that's unfortunately a function and a limitation of Element, but I mean, we have a video layer inside of this glass cube, and you know, when you hit play, you can see it like that. So I hope that helps. This was for Mirror Minds, so I hope that kind of helps you. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. And I can get to them. Let me actually go back to here, and then this camera right here. So if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below, and I will try and answer any and everything that any questions that you might have. I will try and answer them according to my ability to be able to do maybe another live stream like this. And you know, I would appreciate it if you got value out of this thing. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up. That would also be, there we go. Did that? No, that doesn't focus very well. Give me a thumbs up. That would be awesome as well, too. I would appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.